Hello learners, my name is Dr. Paul Mayoni and this is a video welcome message for Counseling 5271, Marriage and Family Systems. My name is pronounced Mayoni and it is my pleasure to be your instructor for this course. I've been with Capella University approximately 13 years. I started off as an adjunct. I've been core faculty for approximately the last 10 years. My PhD is in marriage and family therapy, and I am licensed in the state of Florida as a marriage and family therapist. And I've always divided my time between teaching and practicing. And my practice these days specializes in intensive couples therapy. So for the first 10 years of my clinical practice, I was licensed in 1994. I had sort of a general marriage and family therapy practice, and I saw individuals, couples, and families. And for the last 10 years, I've been specializing with a couple of my colleagues in a project to bring intensive couples therapy to highly conflicted couples, couples in crisis, and couples that are just hanging on by a thread. So if you want to learn more about that, I would encourage you to visit couplesonthebrink.com. I'm happy to be teaching this Intro to Systems class, and I taught it many years ago. It's gone through a few different evolutions, and so I'm back around to teaching it again, and I'm excited to. One of the things that drew me to marriage and family therapy when I was first introduced to it was the idea of thinking systemically, and that was a new concept or a new word for me, but it definitely felt like home when I started to read about models of therapy that were more holistic and took into consideration the context of the family and the context of a presenting problem. And I remember the first time a professor talked to me about how you could look at a presenting problem like schizophrenia or anorexia from a non-medical model perspective, or a more systemic, non-pathological perspective, where you look at the dynamics of the interactions that take place within people, and you can see that a symptom like anorexia can actually be more of an interactional phenomena. And it can be something that's maintained in the present rather than something that's caused by the past. Now, there are different ways of thinking systemically, and in some respects the word systems theory or the phrase systems theory and thinking systemically, that phrase, they are almost meaningless in a sense because it's used in very different ways in our field. In this particular course, we're going to be looking at systems that are also known as first order systems or natural systems. It is one way to enter into the world of systems thinking, but it's not the only way. And in some of the other courses, you'll be introduced to systems thinking from a more second order perspective, or what we call a cybernetic systemic perspective. And that's a very different way of understanding systems. So I think it's just important that you know that there are different definitions to systems, and you really want to be clear that there are specifics and nuances associated. But for the purposes of this course, you want to begin to think in terms of how a symptom or a presenting problem can be looked at in context. And context is such an important idea for marriage and family therapists, because we believe that problems for individuals, problems in relationships don't happen in a vacuum. And when you understand the context, all sorts of different meanings emerge, and different meanings that can have implications for how people live their lives, how they, what they believe, and how they treat one another. You want to be patient with yourself as you embrace systemic ideas, because they are oftentimes very foreign, and they go counter to our cultural medical model that is very pervasive in mental health. And in some respects, systemic ideas oftentimes go against logic. And so we want to be patient with ourselves as we embrace ideas that are sort of pushing against the medical model, pushing against the models of individual pathology, which again is pretty much most mental health. And that's the great thing about marriage and family therapy, is that We do privilege context, and we do privilege things beyond individual pathological renderings of human problems. And much more to say about that, but that's a great thing about the field of MFT. I think another important point is this idea that we focus both on the content of what clients are bringing us, but also the process. Things like who speaks to who decides who makes decisions, what kind of messages are being sent both verbally and non-verbally. And so there's patterns and process that as MFTs we learn to be more attuned to than simply the content of people's problems. We're used to in our personal lives focusing on the content. If somebody has a problem, we respond on the level of the content. Well, as MFTs, the content is important, but even more important are the patterns and the repetitive patterns that occur in intimate relationships or family relationships. This course is nice as well because you're going to be introduced to ideas of multiculturalism. We're going to touch on substance abuse. I believe we're going to look at domestic violence. And so as we are delving into the world of beginning to think more systemically, we're also going to be thinking pretty practically about not only what can we learn from our own experiences and the lens in which we view the world, but also some very important topics that are relevant for practicing clinicians. And so I think you're going to find that valuable. This is my family. We took a trip to the Kennedy Space Center in Cocoa Beach this past summer. And that's my wife, my daughter, and my two twin sons. And so I just wanted to give you a snapshot of them. I live outside of Fort Lauderdale in a town called Plantation. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. And a couple of reminders about the class. You should, upon reading this welcome message, go to the faculty expectations and go through that document. There's a lot of information, so don't be overwhelmed by it, but do make a special note of the due dates for weekly discussions. Our faculty chair encourages us to abide by those. Inevitably, there are things that come up that cause people to miss the deadlines. I would encourage you to submit late work, but do understand that in most instances you will not receive credit, but you will certainly have the benefit of interacting with the material, which is important. And certainly one or even two blown discussions should not greatly impact your overall grade. Be mindful that you should be integrating references with your postings according to APA format, and I know for some of you that'll be not a big deal. For others that might be something new. I would encourage you to get a copy of the APA publication manual. The sooner you begin to understand referencing, the better. And certainly I want to be available to you in the course. There's an Ask Your Instructor tool that I've encouraged you to interact with one another around. I think it's a great way to develop lasting peer relationships, to be helping each other in certain aspects of the course. If there are things that as a group you're finding you're struggling to understand something or want additional information or something very practical about the course, by all means somebody bring that question to me through the email tool, and then you can share it with the rest of the group. Very excited to be teaching this course again, and I look forward to interacting with you over the course of the next 10 weeks. So here's to a great course.